23-year-old Brianni Bonner is a single working mother to her 4-year-old son, Azai. On Saturday morning, when she got home, she couldn't get into her place at the Riviera apartment.
政府接受了群众的要求，判决罪犯李智仁的死刑。
Say it louder for the people in the damn back.
When the sky darkens and the prospect is war, who's given a gun and then pushed to the fore and expected to die for the land of our buck?
Woken up in the middle of the night by a man with a gun. The victims say the man was their landlord trying to force the family with 3 small children out of the house.
Jesse Servin said around midnight his girlfriend and their 3 children were sound asleep when they heard someone breaking down the door.
That's when I heard a scream. So he forced himself in with the rifle and bulletproof vest and LED flashlight. So I couldn't see who it was until I heard his voice.
He says the voice
This is the next step.
was his landlord, Alberto Trevino, who Servin said had showed up pointing a gun at his family, trying to evict.
This is Kelly Goldfeder's routine every time she comes home.
So when I come in here, it's freezing cold. So as soon as I turn on my heater, I just move it.
It's now her 3rd winter in this Parkdale apartment without full central heating.
And how cold does it actually get when there's no heaters in the winter?
Sometimes you can really see your breath. It's so cold. It goes down to like 12 to 13 degrees in here, and I have to have like 4 of the portable units on at all times.
Goldfeder says the problem started in 2017 when her landlord took over the building and started renovations. She says central heating was shut off. Then he sent her an eviction notice claiming her unit needed repairs.
All the other new tenants in here pay double or triple the price that I'm paying in my rent. So yeah, I'm sure it'd be easiest to just move out. For him, like he's definitely freezing me out so I can leave.
Landlords are some of the worst, most horrible, terrible, vile, exploitative people in this world. There has been many books, movies, and history in itself on how vile these parasites are. They basically ride on the backs of the working class. They're literally parasites. So this is in no particular order, but number 1. So what is the actual problem with landlords exactly? Number 1, first off, they live off the income of the working class and the fruits of their labor like parasites. They are dependent on your income to survive. They are pro-capitalism and are capitalists. Capitalists use the profits on exploitation to keep the poor continuously poor. Landlords are capitalists. They control all the capital resources to keep you from owning your own home. Number 2, private property should be abolished as a whole. How is it right for one single person to own a whole entire apartment complex while homeless people have no home at all? And if they trespass onto that private property, they are arrested by the police because the police only serve the rich and elite and the landlords, when it's been proven time and time and again that the United States as a whole doesn't give a shit about its homeless population and people. And the police want to arrest their way out of homelessness. By buying up houses to rent out, landlords not only decrease the opportunities others have of owning a home, but also restrict the supply of housing and increase their profits at the expense of others, aka capitalism exploitation. Number 3, when you're not useful to them, they kick you out.
The maintenance man pulls up and tells me that I'm going to go to jail because it's against the law for me to be trying to get into my apartment.
Bonner says the management made a mistake. Bonner says she lives at apartment 1721 and that management told her they meant to evict 1712.
She told me that it was just a big mistake. It was an accident. They meant to evict the apartment underneath me, but they evicted me by accident.
And in the process, Bonner says she found her belongings in the trash, including her medication for PTSD and anxiety.
About 80% of my things were stolen, and the rest was in the dumpster. My son's teddy bears.
She shared this cell phone video with us where you can see her standing with her 4-year-old son by the dumpster.
I feel like everything was taken from me.
Here at the apartment complex, I emailed and I've called them twice, no response. I made contact with the property manager here at the leasing office. She tells me they did not want to make any comment, but Bonner tells us that management did try to compensate her.
And she told me that all she would be able to do for me is to give me a $200 Visa debit card. It was definitely a slap in the face.
Hours later, Bonner says she was allowed to get back into her apartment.
It was empty. They have repainted. I'm paying my rent. I'm trying to save up to go to school, and it's just so stressful. I have to start all the way over.
She even set up a GoFundMe account, hoping to at least buy toys and the necessities for her son. In Dallas, I'm Molly Basu.
They act like they care about you and manipulate you, and sometimes they'll say, just like a boss that at your work will say, oh, these employees are just like family. My tenants are just like family. But they really don't care about you and manipulate people with food pantries and will post about mental health and self-care online while doing the exact opposite. Let's say that you get behind on rent and your payments because you fall in hard times. They will put threatening notes on the door. They will call the slave patrol on you and have you removed and, threaten you with jail time if you get evicted. It's hard for someone to find another place to live when they have eviction on the record. So it's very contradictory for these landlords to claim they care about mental health of its residents, because if they did, they wouldn't evict someone when it's really stressful on people that have been evicted or are experiencing eviction, and it's damaging to these people's health with the eviction. People end up homeless. It's not right at all for there to be homeless people when the landlord is hoarding unhoused, vacant units. Private property shouldn't exist. Hippity-hoppity, abolish private property. Just because you've been evicted or have bad credit doesn't mean you should be denied housing as a whole. It's really gross and vile that the United States as a whole thinks this is okay and would rather, instead of helping their own citizens, and if you dare to step on private property, they'll arrest you instead of actually helping the population as a whole, or people that are struggling find homes. They'll just call a slave patrol on you. Take, for instance, the Flint water crisis. The city threatened to foreclose or kick renters out if they didn't pay for their poisoned, tainted water that was tainted with, toxic lead. Across the country, landlords routinely use screening policies to deny housing whenever an applicant was named in an eviction case. Eviction will haunt people for, over 7 years, even when a court never ordered the eviction. These unfair policies punish families based on prior landlords' discrimination and decision to file a case. Ignoring the reasons for filing, the outcome of the case, or the family's circumstances, applicants are often asked whether they are ever involved in an eviction case, and tenant screening companies provide court data to landlords, creating tenant blacklists and discrimination lists. Even if the eviction case was dismissed, filed many years ago, or based on unlawful reasons, people's housing options disappear because of discrimination. For example, AR's landlord tried to kick her out when her ex-boyfriend came to her home, threatened her life, and threw a rock through a window, threatening her. Because evictions based on domestic violence are illegal, she got the case thrown out. But 7 years later, she still can't get housing because of the black mark on her record. Evictions do affect people's health. So for a landlord to literally sit here and claim, that they care about your well-being and all that, that's just a manipulation tactic. There are so many studies about how, mental health and physical health are affected by people, who are experiencing eviction. 4. Environmental racism.
They were getting in our clothes, coming onto our bed.
Tenants say cockroaches have invaded their apartments, coming out of the walls, crevices, and outlets.
We had nights that we would wake up with cockroaches all over us, which is just disgusting.
Hannah Singh says she told management at the Springdale Apartments in Westminster of the problem back in June. She says they sprayed, but it wasn't enough. They're still here.
Management kind of just dismissed it like, oh, we'll fix it. It's not that big of a deal.
Fellow tenant Kylie Olson says she noticed roaches right when she moved in.
We saw 5 that night. None of which I killed because they're gross and I didn't want to touch them.
She says she's now spent hundreds on roach traps. Minnie Melchor moved out of the complex after her lease was up, claiming the roaches were too much. She says this is a picture of the bugs in her frying pan. She says her daughter with cerebral palsy was terrified.
Well, she's scared. I mean, she sees them all the time and she would point to them and I would have to literally just go after them and swat them because she can't do anything.
So you can see their feces are all over the top.
This was Hannah's last day in her apartment. She says she couldn't take the barrage of bugs and had to pay $4,000 to break her lease. She says she's lucky to get out.
And a lot of people honestly are being held hostage in their leases because they can't afford to get out of it.
It is ignored and is a huge problem with landlords and housing. I have seen multiple apartments charge top dollar for apartments and knowingly lease out apartments that have a known bug or roach problem or any type of environmental problem. Landlords most of the time knowingly rent out units that have a bug problem, leaking walls, mold, an uncleaned pool, etc. Landlords and the staff have histories, again, of not caring about the residents and answering the phone of the residents' concerns about this. Environmental racism refers to how a minority group neighborhoods populated primarily by people of color and members of low socioeconomic backgrounds are burdened with disproportionate number of biohazards and other sources of environmental pollutants that lower quality of life. That's the definition of environmental racism. A lot of these apartments that I've seen, they go onto these websites like apartment.com and they advertise with pictures of a clean blue pool, but when you get there it's a green and it's dirty and it's attracting bugs. This is false advertising and it can affect your health, and this is environmental racism, and I'll explain why. I recently got out of an apartment where the landlord was racist and thought environmental racism was okay. The pool was dirty, attracting bugs, and the birds and pigeons around the pool would always poop around it and use it basically as a big giant bird bath. There were roaches coming up from the apartment below, even though their apartment was clean. Even though the apartment was clean as a whole, there was a leaky wall already in the wall before the landlord even rented us. And the maintenance man came up and tried to gaslight us, saying it was our fault for the leak when it was already there, before we moved in. The maintenance man didn't even do their job. A clean pool isn't inviting mosquitoes. However, if they're not properly maintained and cleaned, swimming pools can quickly become mosquito breeding sites and breeding grounds, creating a nuisance for both yourself and your neighbors. These bugs carry diseases. They carry, mosquitoes carry West Nile virus. It's one of the most common mosquito-borne diseases in the continental United States. Also, the Zika virus outbreaks have occurred in the United States territories, in Florida, Hawaii, Texas, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands as well. Many germs might be found in bird droppings that can affect humans. E. coli is a big, dangerous bacteria. Another form of bacteria most commonly found in improperly maintained pools is Salmonella, or as in bird droppings themselves by itself. While you may realize that the bacteria is present in raw poultry and often found on eggs, you may not realize it is also prevalent in bird droppings and uncleaned pools. All the landlord has to do is maintain the pool, but most of the time they don't care to maintain it, throughout the whole year. They'll just leave it green for a large portion of the year and attract bugs. When it comes to bed bugs and roaches in your home, is living with roaches a health hazard? Yes, it is. Since apartment units are so close together, bed bugs can easily slide under doors and get through cracks of the walls. Because of this, one apartment unit with bed bugs could mean an infestation for every unit in the apartment building or the apartment complex as a whole, and a big mess for everyone involved. Cockroaches in the home environment are a health hazard as well, not only because of the risk poached by cockroach, to asthma sufferers, but also have been known to carry disease-causing germs, and because of the methods traditionally used to eliminate them, cause additional health hazards, like these dangerous, bug poisons, because many studies have found that cockroaches feed on human excrement and transfer and excrete pathogens around, places. They have a strong secondary role in the spread of diseases. So let's talk about the landlords and China. So what happened was actually the peasants in China and the poor overall hated the landlords for some time in China. The landlords had the power to basically do whatever the fuck they wanted to do, whatever abuse they wanted to do. They did torture to these peasants. They would violently attack the poor without consequence. The landlords made their lives miserable. The landlords basically almost taxed their way into making the peasants like starve to death, and the evil landlords also had their own private armies. Like those people that you see, like loan sharks, how they go beat up people to get their money, like that. So they used them to keep the poor and the people who were renting in their lines less place. There should be no such thing as landlord or privatized housing. So most of the landlord killings, again under Mao, were actions by the peasants themselves. The landlords constantly terrorized the poor and peasants mentally and also physically. They took every opportunity presented and attacked the peasants, and then in return, karma bit the landlords in the ass, and the Mao Revolution, as soon as it happened, the peasants decided to vent centuries of pent-up hatred and rage at their oppressors, aka the landlords, because they're parasites. This was a golden opportunity because now that the China state was on their side, and they took that chance, you can't abuse people and get away with it. So it was a rightful action that the peasants did, the landlords deserved it. Landlords are scum.